It's time for the biggest non-league football debate in the country. Search official BOTN and get involved with tonight's show.
Good evening and welcome to this week's non-league debate. As always, plenty to talk about tonight, and I'm delighted to say that Jody Brown, Frank Wilson and James Cummins join me in the back of the net studio. Right, gentlemen, let's start tonight by talking about Wrexham and the recently departed manager and the recently, even more recently, appointed manager today.
No, it's fairly obvious that it was something that had already lined up. I think it's quite well documented that Graham Barrow didn't really want the job in the first place. He was already on the staff, and I think he reluctantly took the manager's job. Probably hasn't worked out, and this mutual agreement. Wrexham's kind of culture and the trend was young managers that had played for the club. Dean Keats, who went on to Walsall. Sam Rickett's gone on to Shrewsbury. Barrow's come in as an experienced guy in his 60s, broke the mould. Obviously hasn't worked, and they've gone back to young former players and brought in Brian Hughes, who was a player for Wrexham.
Will he be a success?
Every chance he will be. Good, massive club at National League level. Good squad. They're in a good place. Often when you take over clubs, you're taking over struggling clubs. They're certainly not struggling. So he goes into a good position and, got every reason to believe he will go in and succeed.
Right, that's it. Wrexham done. That's it. Jody's covered that one off. We'll move on very swiftly. Barnet last night, they bowed out of the FA Cup. Last non-league team to be left in, of course, losing 3-1 to Brentford, but still they've had a great campaign, James.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic campaign for Barnet in the FA Cup. They've certainly flown the flag for non-league football, and they've given great credit to everybody involved. And just unfortunate it had to end last night, but I'm pretty sure that Darren Curry will certainly take a lot of advantages and positives going in for the remainder of the season for Barnet.
Yeah, it was a tough ask to go back to Brentford and win. They had their brilliant game and that wonderful free kick and 3-3 draw. It was unlikely they were going to go to Brentford and win, but they certainly did non-league proud.
Yeah, they did, and I think what you said there is true in that they had such an epic game at home, and the win, the draw rather, was such an emphatic one in some of the moments that it had in the game. Still big positives to take from last night, even though it was a defeat. I think they had a crowd of over 1,600 Barnet fans that went to Brentford, which is enormous. I think Darren Curry can be proud and pleased, and obviously, hopefully, try and take the positive FA Cup run into the league now and see how things go there.
We should mention as well with Barnet that they're still in the FA Trophy. They've obviously got a replay against Carshalton Athletic, so it just shows how well they're doing this season to be in that position as well. They've got another competition that perhaps could see them go to Wembley.
Yeah, I think when we talk about non-league clubs, you have to differentiate between the big full-time clubs like Barnet and then your non-league clubs like Haringey Borough, for example, who had a good cup run this year and last year. I kind of expect it from clubs like Barnet. Certainly in the FA Trophy, they're the highest league, highest level in that competition. So they should be getting to the latter stages of the competition, and they'll be disappointed drawing with Carshalton. There's probably 50, 60 places between the two clubs.
It's a poor result, isn't it?
Yeah.
Poor result, yeah.
So to draw 3-3 there, they'll be disappointed, and now they've exited the FA Cup. I think their minds will be on making sure they put that right next time. With regards to their FA Cup run, it's a great run, and the standout result was obviously beating Sheffield United. But again, when you're a Step 1 non-league club, full-time, big club like Barnet, if you look at the run they had to it, Braintree from the same division, part-time club, Stockport from a level below, Bristol Rovers from League 2, took them to a replay. Sheffield United, an understrength side, and then obviously the Brentford game went to a replay. It is good, but it's not amazing. It's not like they're beating teams 60, 70 places above them. I think what's good about it, the positive I take, is the nature and the way they approach the games. So when they played Sheffield United, they didn't sit back. When they played Brentford, they didn't sit back. It would be easy to be cagey, but they played attacking football. So that's the credit I'd give Darren Curry and Barnet, the way they approach the fixtures. I think the run itself, it's nothing we haven't seen before.
Is Jody being unfair there? Because BT Sport built the game up when they covered it against Brentford, it was built as the minnows of Barnet taking on the Championship Brentford? Or is he right in saying that actually Barnet at their level should be giving Brentford a really good game?
No, I'll take Jodie's point about how they are seen as a non-league team, and I completely understand Jodie's point about there is a clear differentiation between different types of non-league clubs, and I don't think that they form that stereotype. I think that they are, like he says, they're a full-time team and there is big expectations from Barnet. But I think that I disagree entirely with Jodie there in terms of how well they've done in the FA Cup, because I see it differently. I see that their wins against Sheffield United, even though teams are fielding less strength teams, I still don't take for granted a victory in the FA Cup against professional football teams.
But they're professional. But Barnet are professional. They are,
but again, if we're going to talk about the differentiations between non-league teams and full-time non-league teams and part-time non-league teams, I think you've got to take the same approach in terms of full-time clubs. And I think that there is a clear difference between Sheffield United and Barnet Football Club, respectfully. And I just think that wins against those sorts of clubs is enormous. Taking a replay for Brentford, enormous, my opinion. I would say that was a run that I would not have expected them to go on and to be a successful one.
But someone does it every year.
I think the FA Cup definitely produces, yes, cup runs and similar sorts of success trails. I would argue against their trail this year in comparison to someone else that we could discuss maybe in terms of the types of teams that they played or the types of games that they played. I think they've had a difficult cup run this year. I wouldn't say that was expected of them to beat those teams.
No, I'm not saying it's an easy route. As what I'm saying is the teams they're beating aren't huge places beneath them or above them.
Yeah.
It's a lot different for, say, like Haringey Borough's result against AFC Wimbledon, 90 whatever minute winner for AFC Wimbledon. Now, there's probably 80 places between those two teams. Barnet, especially with their 5 or 6 games in hand, realistically could be in the National League playoffs, and they're playing Bristol Rovers. I think that's a fairly even game as a cup tie. I'm not massively surprised they beat Bristol Rovers. And then when I saw the Sheffield United team, I think there was only 3 starters from the league fixture, Sheffield United's previous league fixture. If you play if you're Barnet and you play someone's 23s behind closed doors, you expect to beat them. Yeah. Full-time National League players.
Is that you'd stand by that then? So Sheffield United, a massive football club, been in the Premier League, in the Championship, with the resources that they've got and perhaps the scouting networks they've got. You would say that their 23 players, maybe with a couple of senior players in there, shouldn't be beating. That their view wouldn't be you should be beating Barnet.
I want to be completely clear. I haven't studied the Sheffield United team and their backgrounds. I did note that they made a huge number of changes from their league fixture.
Let's say it's their 23s with a few players.
I would say full-time senior players at Barnet should be beating Sheffield United's 23s. And my experience tells me that happens. So when I was Welling manager, the fated spell I had at Welling, we played Reading behind closed doors. Reading's 23s. We went there. We drew 2-2. We were one of the worst teams in the National League. And Reading at the time were in the Premier League. We outplayed them for huge periods of the game, and it wasn't even our strongest 11 because it was a midweek game to give players minutes. We outplayed them for huge periods of the game at their training ground, and that was a Premier League 23s, and we were a poor National League team. Barnet are a strong National League team with huge resources in comparison to the likes of Braintree and Wellings, and I would fully expect them to beat a 23s. When you look to loan players in at National League level, you'd look to take 23s in. Lots of them aren't good enough to come into your side.
I agree with Jodie's point there about if you take a massive Championship club and if they make significant changes, and in fairness, even the word significant may only actually mean 1 or 2, because some of these Championship clubs and playing at that level of football, we see it week in, week out in Premier League football when teams make minor adjustments or managers. Yeah,
Harry Kane done play for Spurs.
Exactly. Great example. I think it completely alters the face and the performance of a team when they make significant changes or they leave some of their best players out. But I would still argue against the fact that there is still a depth of a squad that surely their ambition when they go into an FA Cup game, Sheffield United against Barnet, the players that are in that dressing room, the manager that's taken that team, everything surrounding that fixture, Sheffield United want to win that game.
But does it show how the gap has closed, perhaps, between, in football in general, right the way down to non-league, that gap's closed now, so if you take a few players out, you can't afford to do that?
All right, to put it into perspective, would you say Carshalton drawing 3-3 with Barnet is a better result than Barnet drawing 3-3 with Brentford?
That's a good question. Frank will let you answer it.
I think it is a good question. I think that it was extremely disappointing from Barnet's perspective to draw any scoreline with Carshalton. Fantastic result for Carshalton, and they will be feeling, as Barnet did when they've been progressive in the FA Cup, although they didn't win the game. But again, it might come down to team selection. I think if we analyse the squad that Barnet would have put out against Carshalton, I can almost guarantee that they would have made and rang significant changes.
There are more places between, to your point, there are more places between Brentford and Barnet than there are between Carshalton and Barnet.
And of course, Carshalton are part-time, Barnet are professional football players.
It shouldn't happen in general, to be honest. My opinion would be always in this sort of competition, and I would say the FA Trophy, dependent on the team, is to field your best team. You know, if you owe it to everybody, you owe it to fans. We know this, don't we? We could say everything about this topic. There's so much responsibility on clubs to outperform the team that they play, no matter what the competition. It happens, you said it earlier, how many times does it happen? A non-league team has a great FA Cup run. Let's be honest, we're all advocates and lovers of non-league football. But it shouldn't happen. Non-league teams shouldn't get to the first round, the second round. When they play full-time teams, they shouldn't win, because full-time teams should be beating those teams.
To put it another way, it is the fact that clubs like Sheffield United, and I think it's been well reported that their view on it would be, we're not going to win the FA Cup, so our priority is in the league for promotion. We're not going to win the FA Cup, which is a view that some might disagree with. They might have a good run. You look at the likes of Portsmouth and Wigan that have won the Cup in recent years. Does that change in football now, with clubs having that attitude, mean that non-league clubs are always going to have more of a chance?
I think the Premier League has damaged the FA Cup massively. So the prize money in every place you finish in the Premier League is huge. You know, 3, 4, 5 million between each place. The huge windfall you get for getting into the Premier League. So Sheffield United, that's what they're trying to achieve. I can understand why they would undervalue the FA Cup. I think if you're a League One club or a League Two club, you should be throwing everything at the FA Cup, because you're hoping for that big tie like Newport have just got against Manchester City. That's what you're hoping for. I think non-league clubs should never play a weekend side in the FA competitions, because first and foremost, the players and the managers, the trophy is a chance to get to Wembley. The FA Cup is a chance to pit your wits against full-time professionals, and I think to underestimate how good an opportunity that is wrong. And you do see some non-league clubs. I know managers that will say, "It's an FA Trophy game. I'm gonna put some of the squad players in." Surprises me every time I hear it. But yeah, certainly the higher you go now, the less importance is placed on the FA Cup, and it's sad to see. And I think because of that, we're going to see more and more and more cup upsets. But I'm going to keep saying that it's not as big an upset as people think it is when you look at the changes that were made to the teams.
Yeah, and I'll go back to your point that you made. I think it's important about, is the gap of non-league football and full-time football narrowing because of the examples of non-league teams doing well and better in their previous performances in the FA Cup. I agree. I think that we massively exaggerate the standard of professional football at times, respectfully. I think that there are hundreds of examples of non-league players and teams that, if they were given the same or equal opportunities as the professional teams in terms of training every day and improvement, you wouldn't see much of a difference. And I think that's why you see this happen year in, year out. We overinflate the standards, even set by some Premier League teams, because of the connotations that attach themselves to those leagues and the bigger teams, the cities and you know the real big players. I don't think the gap is that big anyway.
Does that? I'm just going to move away from non-league for a moment. Then does that emphasise just how good Manchester City are with the fact that they stuck, I think it was 7 past Rotherham, 9 past Burton. Does that show you how good they actually are? Because you say we said the gap is closing in football, but if they're coming out with those score lines,
I think the important thing is not to compare the absolute elite with League Two and League One, because the gap between Manchester City and a team like Cambridge United, I'm just picking a team, or Crewe Alexandra, is huge. I'd say the gap between Manchester City, Liverpool and those type of clubs is a lot bigger than those type of clubs and, say, Tunbridge Angels or Dorking Wanderers. I think Frank's right in what he says. If you gave the Dorking, Tunbridge teams at the top of the Bostik Premier, if you gave them the resources to be full-time with the group of players and put a proper staff infrastructure in place, that they would compete with the bottom of League Two.
We'll come on to that in a moment. We'll move on from Barnet, and I think somewhere in there was a compliment about how well you've done in the FA Cup, believe me. But we'll move on, and actually it's a good point that you make. And when we look at perhaps the elite that you mentioned in the Premier League, are we close to having an elite or the group of teams that are going to win in non-league? When we look at the top of the National League, for example, Leyton Orient and Salford City, at the top of the National South you've got Torquay United, at the top of the Bostik Premier League at the moment is Dorking Wanderers, and the Evo-Stik Premier Central is Kettering Town. If you look at all of those teams, and some might beg to differ, but they've all got a wealth of resources money-wise, and we're probably seeing the teams that have spent the most money winning the leagues. Is that something that is, even though the gap's getting smaller, it's still the teams that have got the resources?
Yeah, I think it's an obvious. I think it's an obvious observation, Ben. I think that within non-league football specifically, like you say, all the teams that are well resourced or resourced the best tend to do the best, just because they can handpick the players to a degree in terms of that level of football. They can bring the better non-league football players into their squads. Non-league football is depicted, by how much money teams can pay players in terms of the standards, because that's why you don't see enough examples of teams with the lesser budgets doing as well as those teams, just because, just like the professional game, if you took all of the money out of the top 4 Premier League clubs, would they do as well as the next 4 teams and the next 4 teams?
So you're talking now about the coaching, and that was from the point that you made, Jody. So if you took Pep Guardiola and put him into, let's say, Margate, who are struggling in the Bostik Premier Division, would that make a difference? Some people watching would say you're being ridiculous. Of course, it would make a difference. But would Margate win the league?
I think if you could create this alternative universe, and Pep Guardiola had all his attributes, but he wasn't Pep Guardiola, so he was an equal coach to what he is now, and you gave him the same set of players, I think you would see an improvement, because he's obviously a special coach and an inspirational guy. But I don't think any coach makes a bad team, and I'm not calling Margate a bad team, I haven't seen him play, but makes a bad team a good team. I think even the greatest coaches in the world need to go out, spend money and sign the greatest players in the world to achieve great things. The reason I said about the alternate universe is because obviously if Pep walks into the Margate dressing room, everyone feels $1 million because it's Pep. You need to try and create a situation where he's not Pep, he's just a very, very good coach. The more I'm in the game and the more experiences I have, my feelings about how much effect a coach or manager has is gradually going down. Obviously, there's a percentage effect they have. There's some very bad coaches and managers that make a mess of things, and there's some very good managers and coaches that get teams over the line that another coach might not have done. But in general, the clubs with the best players are the most successful. And I'm not sure how important the manager is, providing it's not an absolute fool. Chelsea, as an example. Change the manager every 2 years, still win trophies. Is it the manager or is it the set of players?
Frank? We'll bring James in a minute. I mean, stole of the show. But.
Fine. No, I don't. I understand Jody's points, and I followed it fairly accurately there. I just think that he doesn't give himself enough credit as a manager or a coach, and I think that actually there is a bigger onus on managers and coaches for the most part in terms of galvanising teams and making teams better. I would actually go as far as to say I see so many managers, especially non-league level. I see a lot of managers and coaches that they fall into the rhythm of non-league football in terms of the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday commitment, and they just turn up on a Saturday, they go and get a cup of tea from the bar, they have a chat with a couple of people that you always see them talk to, and then they go and stand in the dugout, and then the players dictate what goes on.
Let me jump in.
There's got to be more to management.
Yeah, of course.
Than just having good players.
Yeah, let me jump in then. I say there's a percentage difference. So a good manager could take a relegation-threatened team to maybe mid-table, or a mid-table team to the playoffs, or a playoff team to the title. But I don't care who you are. You're not taking a bottom three team to win the title, whoever the manager is, without having a complete overhaul of the playing squad. Again, another example. How can a multi-millionaire businessman walk in and win the league? He's never coached a day in his life, can walk in and win the league because he can sign the best players.
Would that happen?
It does happen. We know it happens. We see it. There's clubs where their manager is not a qualified football coach, an ex-player, got any experience of managing at any level whatsoever. They come in and they have massive success.
But surely that's got to have something to do with not just the players. Surely the staff, the supporters must play a part in that. Surely the representation of the club in general has got to...
So the clubs that I've listed there, and not to want to be too controversial, but Leyton Orient, Salford City, Torquay United, Dorking Wanderers, Kettering, we're giving less credit to those managers and coaching staff because they've got money. No,
not giving them less credit, being realistic. What I'm saying is a lot of managers would get Leyton Orient into the playoffs, so in the top 7. If Justin Edinburgh goes on and wins the league, that's what separates him from the others. He's taken Leyton Orient to the next level. If Leyton Orient finished 10th, that would be a massive underachievement, and then you would say, I don't think he hasn't performed very well as a manager. My point isn't that every team that wins the league, it's just down to the players. My point is that there's marginal gains because of the managers. I'm saying a pretty average manager could get Leyton Orient into the playoffs. A good manager will get them promoted.
James, you're a big Woking fan, and obviously Alan Dowson's gone in, having done so well at Hampton and Richmond last season. Is he showing the value, the added value of a really good non-league manager by, Woking being right at the top of the table, or is he doing what all Woking fans would think any manager should do with a club like Woking in that division?
No, I think he's doing exactly what it says on the tin, really. Alan Dowson is a very good example of somebody who can go into a club, whatever the budget may be. And to be perfectly honest, if you look at his last job at Hampton and Richmond, he didn't have the biggest budget compared with some of the other teams that he had around him. And he got the team into the playoffs last season. And he's basically done the same with Woking. Woking's been in turmoil since last season. We all know about what happened last year with Anthony Limbrick, and when he came into the club were a mess. The club were a real mess. And if you look at the other teams in the league, you may argue the point that Woking might have a better budget compared with some of the other teams which are a little bit lower. Not to take out examples, teams towards the bottom like Hungerford Town, Weston-super-Mare, Chippenham Town, there's another example. Some people may argue and say that Dowse should be doing exactly what he's doing. But with that, he is doing exactly what the Woking fans want to do, and he's not spending a massive fortune. And to be really blunt, he doesn't have the resources of a bigger team in that league, maybe like Billericay Town or Dulwich Hamlet, for example, who aren't doing so well. And he is bringing the values of what a non-league manager should be doing without the massive budget behind him and gaining success with a club like Woking at the moment.
But if they don't go up, has he done a good job?
Yes. I honestly think he has, because Woking needed stability at this particular time.
Right.
The last time Woking were in Conference South, when they were relegated in 2008, if I'm correct, it took them 3 years to get back into the conference. Getting a team into the playoff places in such a mess that Woking were in, and let's not forget, they were they were in utter shambles going into Conference South.
Right.
They were exactly the same the last time round when they had Neil Baker. He couldn't do the job. Gary Hill came in with Steve Thompson. It still took them 2 seasons, and it still took time. Dowse and his team have effectively got a brand new team. Let's not forget that team is effectively a brand new team, bar 1 or 2 players who were there last season, into a competitive position where we are now. So it's credit where's credit's due.
I'm going to ask you in a moment about Dave Tarpey, who left Barnet to join Woking last week. But I want one final question on this. You're both managers, you've managed clubs. If you could have a choice of managing a team that you didn't have the money or did have the money, so you'd be under a lot of pressure to deliver with the likes of the teams we've mentioned, Leyton Orient, Salford City, would you rather manage a club that you knew had potential, that perhaps you could create your own style and you wouldn't have the pressure of having all the best players? Or is it simply the case that all managers would love to be managing Salford City?
Yeah, I'll jump straight in. No, I'd personally rather manage the big club. Because I think as a manager, you've got to accept the responsibility of whatever it looks like at the club that you're at. If that's a club that you're managing of, like when I was at 210 and we had a weak budget, you have to just accept the circumstances, and then you have to set your own goals, your own achievements, just get on with it. But personally, in terms of my own ambition, I'd love the opportunity to manage a Salford with the biggest resources, a Leyton Orient, professional outfits. I'd love that because I'd want to test myself and my staff and my players at that level. I'd rather deal with those pressures than have the pressures of teams with poor budgets where you can't. And Jody says this all the time. Jody is strong on professionalism, right? That's his ethos as a coach and as a manager. You can't achieve the highest level of professionalism, in my opinion, without the financial backing. But
can you not instill that level of professionalism? Is there not a challenge to going into a team?
It will only take you, Ben, so far. There's a cap. He said it earlier on the show. There's a ceiling limit for certain teams based on their resources and what they can achieve. And I think that if you're at the highest level, then the limits are the top. That's what you do.
I think there's a totally different pressure of managing a side that's trying to get promoted, and it's a totally different skill set than managing a side where it's a project that you're building. You've got long-term stability. There's no pressure on results. It's about building a philosophy, a culture, and looking for more longer-term goals. Clubs with the short-term goals of like, we want to get promoted into the Football League, there's a different type of pressure. For me, I like either. I like either. I think the pressure at the top is, you have a bad spell, you're sacked, which isn't nice. The difference when you're managing a mid-table side, you are able to use your methods over a long period of time to try and make a difference. If you're managing a relegation-threatened side, it's a whole different type of pressure. But like Mourinho once said, when we're talking about pressure in football, it doesn't compare to like pressure in real life, like people dying and not being able to pay your mortgage and things like that. So is it pressure? It's not really pressure at all. It's an opportunity to do something you love. So like Frank says, if you can go and manage Leyton Orient in front of 7,000 every week, trying to win the league, that's got to be better than managing Whitehawk at the moment, bottom of the Bostik Prem.
Final point tonight is we mentioned Dave Tarpey, we mentioned Woking, we've mentioned Barnet this evening. He's gone on loan to Woking. Is that the kind of player that's perhaps going to make the difference to try and pip Torquay at the top of the table?
I think, to be brutally honest, it's a massive gamble by Dowse. Again, he's worked with him before in previous clubs. Tarpey is a recognised striker. We all know about him very well. He's got a very, very decent proven track record in non-league.
With Maidenhead United, you're talking about.
Exactly, yep, lots of goals there. But it's a gamble as well that he's not fully fit. He's come back from a pretty nasty injury and he's still trying to get game time. Dowse has given him an opportunity to regain his fitness at a very critical time at the club, because at the moment Woking are on a pretty bad run of form. They're needing goals. Tarpey is seen as the right man for the job. And hopefully with his inclusion at Kingfield, it will kickstart their season once again, hopefully, and get to score a few goals whilst he's there.
Yeah, I think the thing with Tarpey is he's been out for a long time, not played a lot of football in the last 2 years. And I think to get the best out of him, it's important what type of partner he's got. It's Bradbury at the moment, I think you told me earlier. He had his massive success playing up front for Maidenhead with Sean Marks, who's 6'3", target man, wins a lot of flick-ons, occupies centre halves and gives Tarpey a lot of freedom to run in behind and be the player that he is. It'll be interesting to see how he does at Woking. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a risk, because I'm sure Dowson's got him on a really good deal on loan. He's probably not paying his full wage, so it's probably a measured risk. But when you haven't played for a couple of years, it's going to take him time.
Yeah, I think it's more of a risk, to be honest, with the timing of where Tarpey's come into the Woking squad. Of course, the form has dipped at a very critical period. It's that sort of curse of the FA Cup or the Cup run where you always have a dip after that, as like Woking have had success. I think the biggest thing at the moment, which most Woking fans are talking about, there seems to be sort of like a parallel going on at the moment between losing key players at certain periods. Last season, when Woking lost Ini Effiong and Joe Ward at a critical time after the FA Cup, Woking went on a suicidal dive out of the conference, which was awful for Woking fans, likewise myself. This year, something similar has happened again with the likes of Jamal Loza going off to Billericay and also Toby Edser going back to Nottingham Forest when he had a really effective loan spell. He's now gone on loan again to a league club. It's whether Woking can actually fill the gaps as well. And also to mention, including that too, is Woking haven't had Max Kretschmer for a long, long time either. So when I talk about risk, it's the fact of the timing of when Dave Tarpey's coming to the club. Like, we know all about his track record, as we've mentioned already. He is a success at different levels and at different clubs. It's how he makes an impact coming into this critical stage for Woking.
So maybe if they had some of those players and kept some of those boys that they've had on loan, maybe the onus wouldn't solely be on Tarpey to come in and do as well as they need him to do, given the fact that he's not played a lot of games. My worry is that he's not got enough football under his belt, and Woking are challenging at the minute. So I would have, as a Woking fan, I'm sure you'd have liked to have seen someone that's already played 25, 30 games this season and scoring goals and doing well. It's a big ask.
Yeah, we watch it with interest. Good week to talk about Woking. Of course, James, our Woking expert here with us. That's all we've got time for tonight. Do get your thoughts into us on social media. It's official BOTN on Twitter. You can rewatch the debate and let us know what you think of any of the topics that we've discussed tonight. My thanks to Frank Wilson, Jody Brown and James Cummins, and we'll see you next time.